Welcome back to Hot Mess Espresso, guys. We have a certified life coach and somebody who is certified in implied quantum biology. I don't know what that is. We're about to find out, but please welcome Johanna Swanson. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Heather?
I'm good. I'm good. So you've kind of been through it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we just want to start at the beginning of how all of this played out?
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. When I was in my, gosh, I wish I remember the exact year, but before I had children, I found out that uh, was I have the gene mutation that's called the BRCA2 gene mutation.
Yes.
A lot of people remember this as like the Angelina Jolie cancer mutation.
Mm-hmm.
What this means is that my chances of getting ovarian cancer and breast cancer were extremely high.
Mm.
And so after I had my two children, my doctors were chomping at the bit to remove my organs, to remove my breasts, and to remove my ovaries and my uterus, because that would reduce my chance of risk of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agreed. Because I
Right.
had children, I felt the obligation to do this radical procedure. And no one prepared me or educated me or
Right.
warned me about exactly what it was that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were very flippant about, like, well, you're done having kids, you don't need your organs anymore. And so I went from a person who was very emotionally regulated, who was very resilient, who had encounters with depression due to extreme circumstances in my life, but
Mm-hmm.
always managed to bounce back. And then after the surgical menopause, I had horrible, debilitating anxiety and depression that I'd never experienced before.
Now,
And
for those of we hear surgical menopause and we automatically think it's a hysterectomy, but it's not. So what is the difference between a hysterectomy and then surgical menopause?
so a hysterectomy is just the removal of your ovaries. I'm sorry, of your uterus.
Mm-hmm.
When you remove your ovaries, that's called an oophorectomy. And the oophorectomy is what pushes you into menopause because you don't have your ovaries any longer. Some people experience menopause through medications that ruin their ovaries, or sometimes chemotherapy that ruins women's ovaries. And so they'll go straight into menopause.
Right. How old were your kids with all of this?
We're really young. My daughter was about a year and a half. Yeah. And I had the mastectomy first
Mm-hmm.
with reconstruction, and had two infections in my left breast, and then after that had the hysterectomy. So I had 7 surgeries in a year and a half,
That's a lot.
which was a lot.
That
Yeah.
isn't that. Yeah. I've had multiple surgeries, but over the course of like 14 years, not
11
a
months.
year and a half.
So yeah, it was. I'm glad that I had my breast removed first,
Mm-hmm.
because while that was challenging, it was, and having 2 infections and being in and out and in and out was
Mm-hmm.
challenging. It was still not as challenging as the hysterectomy, because the hysterectomy created this internal turmoil that I had never experienced before. And it was so different than the other experiences that I had had with some depression. Were so obvious why I was upset. There were these huge, it was very obvious. There were these outside
Yeah.
influences that, anyone would have been upset with what I had gone
Right.
through then. And then having it all be internal and all driven by my hormones was really hard. And I was on hormone replacement therapy, but the hormone replacement therapy that I was on was synthetic for one. I was on synthetic estrogen rather than bioidentical. And I was not given any progesterone. And so, there are just some really defining moments in my journey to get back into health that really inspired me to help others. For example, knowing that I had all of this turmoil just because my hormone shift, it's so obvious to me how so many women of all ages are suffering from anxiety and depression. And the first thing that happens when they go to the doctor is that they're just told, well, here's some sleeping medication, here's some SSRIs, and go on your way. When in all reality, we should be looking at hormone balance because, as I like to say, hormone health is mental health.
It really is. It really is. I suffer from it myself. Like the week before my period, I'm a psycho, an absolute ragey psycho. And it's not fun. And I literally can't control it. And I'm super angry. I'm super depressed. Like I'm so much worse than I normally am. And for some reason, every month I'm like, why am I feeling like this? And then I'll check my app and I'm like, oh, because that's due in 4 days. Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not normal. I don't feel like you're supposed to be literally in the depths of despair.
Right.
4 days before.
Well, there are things that you can do to help those symptoms because essentially that's your progesterone dropping.
Yeah.
That makes you feel more anxious. And that's what I learned through my journey was, I was on estrogen, I was on testosterone, and I started learning more about these hormones. And I went to my doctors and said, hey, I need some progesterone. I'm anxious. I'm depressed. This is not normal for me. Give me some progesterone. And their answer was, sorry, you don't have a uterus. You don't need a progesterone.
Okay. So, your body still functions as
right. And I was just like, but no, look at this. Look at this study that I read, and look at I'm on PubMed looking studies up myself, and they're like, yeah, that's not standard of care. If you don't have a uterus, you don't need progesterone. And so finally, I was able to find a doctor that prescribed me progesterone, and within 3 days, I felt completely different. Right. There was this sensation from the crown of my head to the top of my shoulders that I didn't know was there until it was gone. And I'm sure that's just my nervous system. It was just fried because I needed that progesterone.
Yeah. So obviously, like we've kind of done a dive into how it was, but how was the struggle doing all of this and being a mom to toddlers?
Right. I was a mom to toddlers. I had a business, I work with artisans in Colombia that weave different textiles. So I had this online clothing textile business, and I was a teacher. I was teaching elementary school full time, where typically that was my MO. I could do all of those things. And so it was such a contrast to not be able to function the way that I had functioned all my life, to be so full of energy, so mentally, I call it my mental prowess. Remember everything, go here, do that, work out, surf, just doing it all. And that was just my normal way of being. And then having that all crash down on top of me. And so that's what really helped me learn my second lesson in this whole process, which was the importance of grief and the importance of grieving during this life transition. It also gave me context in that idea that grieving isn't bad.
Right.
I think we all have this idea that grief is something that's bad, and we all have this idea that it's when somebody passes away. But grief, if we really sit and think about your life, we're all grieving something
Mhm.
every single day. And so I was in this mode of trying to get back to being the person I was before. And I was so upset that I wasn't able to perform at the level that I had been performing before, and wanting to be my old self,
Mhm.
wanting to, find who I once was. And in this very clear moment where I realized, like, oh, shoot, like, you are creating so much suffering for yourself. You need to accept that you're never going to be the person you were before. No one is ever the person they were
Yep.
before. We're not even the person we were yesterday.
Well, you would hope. There are some people that just really like being stagnant, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. And that grief is just part of the process and part of
Mhm.
the acceptance, and finding the gifts of this new stage of life. That was a really big crossroads. And it's, from one second to the next, my whole world really changed when I decided to stop fighting to be who I once was, and accepting who I am now, and seeing it more as an opportunity, an opportunity to create whatever I want for myself.
Yeah.
So that was another big lesson.
So, in creating the life and all of that for yourself, you kind of dove into something that I've literally never heard of. Literally. And I literally have to look at it to make sure that I get it correct. But implied quantum biology.
Right. So it's actually
What is that?
applied with an A,
Applied.
applied quantum biology. So this is the study of how light, water, and magnetism affect our mitochondrial health.
Mm,
And the fact that healthy mitochondria is what creates a healthy body and mind.
right.
So the way that I came upon quantum biology was because I was learning about Bitcoin. And so I went into these, do you know what Clubhouse is?
No. I know what Bitcoin is, and that's about as far as I
Well,
go.
no worries. So Clubhouse is an app
Mhm.
where anybody can open up a room, and it's all just voice. So there's no video, it's just voice. And people open up these rooms or chat rooms. And anybody can come in and listen. And then if you raise your hand, you can go up on stage and you can ask a question or give a comment, whatever. So I went into that app and I just started looking for information on Bitcoin because I wanted to learn about Bitcoin. I found myself in a room with like the billionaires of Bitcoin. And so I
Okay.
would, in the mornings when I was getting my classroom prepped at 6:30 in the morning, I would listen to the conversation and I would take notes, and then
Mhm.
on my own time later I would go and I would research all of these terms and these things, and teach myself about it. Sometimes I go on stage and I would ask things or whatever. In that group, there was this man named Jack Cruz, and he's like the one of the founders of what people now call quantum biology. And on a separate day, he had his own room open, and I went in and I told him, I went through surgical menopause. I'm having a really hard time. Do you have any advice for me? And he kind of, first of all, told me you should have never had that surgery in the first place, and you need to increase your redox, and some other things I just really didn't understand.
Right.
But it really made me curious. And so I started really listening to him and learning about how, again, having healthy mitochondria is what enables all of our cells to have the energy that they need in order to function properly. And that applied quantum biology is really looking at, we think of biology, we think of biochemistry, like, oh yeah, we know that we have like this chemical compound and that chemical compound, and they do this and that. But at the quantum level, you're looking one level deeper, and you're looking at where are the photons coming from, the protons, how are mitochondria making that ATP, that is the energy that fuels the cell. And so the easiest point of entry into understanding quantum biology is really looking at our light environment. Okay? Because the signals, the frequencies of light that we get are the algorithm for all of our body systems. Okay, so in nature, we all know that when light goes through a prism, you get a rainbow. And a rainbow, all of those different colors of the rainbow are a visual representation of the frequency of energy that's in the sunlight. And those frequencies are measured in nanometers. In nature, we always have all of those frequencies of energy present. Some parts of the day, you might have a little bit more blue and a little bit less red and yellow, but they're all there, and they all balance each other out, and they all give our brain different messages about our hormones. Because we live in a modern world where we're not outside.
Nope.
We've been told that the sun is to be feared, and we're inside in artificial light that does not give us frequencies of energy that's anything like the sun. We're giving our bodies a completely confusing signal about what it should be doing to be healthy. And that directly affects the way that our mitochondria perform and is linked to hormone imbalance.
I never thought of it that way. That being inside is we all get kicked outside as kids, right? Like, I'm a millennial, so we were probably the last generation to really get kicked outside, maybe older Gen Z. But I had no idea that, being inside was gonna screw it up that much, on a literal cellular level.
At a cellular level. And I mean, when you say it, it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, duh.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, duh. Look at plants. Plants need to be outside. And so it's not only that we're not outside, it's that when we are inside, we are underneath artificial light that is giving our brain a signal that makes our cortisol increase.
Right.
Cortisol is a hormone.
Yep. I know all about that one. That's a stress hormone, right?
Yeah. And it's important. It's an important hormone. But when you're underneath artificial blue light, you're spiking your cortisol very high. And so it puts your whole body and all of the signals of your body into it's a chaotic scene. If we're in nature, when you wake up in the morning, you go outside because the sunrise has woken you up. Those frequencies of sunlight are giving your body a specific message that it's time to wake up. Yes, let's get you some cortisol, but not a ton, right? Enough so that you wake up. Let's get your digestion moving. Let's release some sex hormones. Let's check in with your body and see how much energy you have stored on your body in the form of fat, so that we know if we need to be super hungry and go find a big meal, or do we have enough fat on our body that go eat something, but you don't need to. You're not going to die. You have plenty of energy stored on your body. And then even more, just as important, is how important darkness is. Because When you are exposed to the dark, that's when your body is able to increase its levels of melatonin. And melatonin not only helps you fall asleep, but it helps you stay asleep and repair at a cellular level while you're asleep. And if you're exposing yourself to blue light right before you go to bed, or even some people fall asleep with the lights on, then your melatonin is not rising high enough in order to repair. And so your cortisol's still high and you're in like this cortisol spiral.
That kind of explains why people on night shift are just so dysregulated, even with blackout curtains. And that
Mm-hmm.
also explains why when I'm up at camp, I can wake up at 6 a.m., no problem. But you asked me to wake up at 6 a.m. in my bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and it is not happening.
Right. Right. And it's more than even cortisol. For example, the light, the sunlight, the frequencies of light that are present in the environment at sunrise start a whole cascade of different amino acids and hormones in your body, even in neurotransmitters. So, for example, when you wake up at sunrise, you are your body's producing, your brain is producing tryptophan. That tryptophan later turns into serotonin, and then that serotonin later turns into melatonin. So, what I tell my clients is that your sleep routine starts at sunrise.
Yep.
Because at sunrise, you're starting this cascade that eventually is the melatonin that you're going to use. Not all of the melatonin, but part of the melatonin. Also, the serotonin and the dopamine. If you're not getting those signals at sunrise, you're not making as much serotonin and dopamine as you otherwise would. And so this affects all of our hormones, because if our cortisol is high, our body is prioritizing survival, not reproduction.
Yeah.
There is a phenomenon called the pregnenolone steal. Pregnenolone is a precursor to our sex hormones, and it is released by the mitochondria. And pregnenolone also is a precursor to cortisol. So whatever pregnenolone we have present, if you're in artificial blue light spiking your cortisol, that pregnenolone is always going to prefer making cortisol than it is going to prefer making your sex hormones. So that's why it's called the pregnenolone steal. The pregnenolone is being stolen from your sex hormones to go over to the cortisol. So this is, again, another reason why it's really important to change our habits and live in tune with the sunrise, the sunset, and give ourselves as much complete darkness as possible at night when we're sleeping.
Yeah, no kidding. That explains why I'm waking up 18 times a night when I have the TV on.
Yeah.
Which, like, I kind of knew, but when you break it down into, like, the science of it, which I was terrible at science in school, but it's still fascinating to me. Like, as long as I'm not being quizzed on this, I love learning. But yeah, that makes so much sense. Like, the way you were explaining that makes sense. And then when you were saying, like, the steel, like, wanting to make cortisol versus this, that explains why everyone's drive is just absolute kaputs when you're stressed the hell out.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's, part of this is the reason why men are having the big hormonal crisis as well, with really low levels of testosterone. Obviously, there are other things happening, but if you're at the cellular level not even giving your body the right signals, then all of these other things are compounding it as well. And so, that's just one thing. If we're taking supplements or we're taking hormone replacement therapy, if you are not functioning optimally at the quantum level, all of those other things that you put on top are kind of null and void.
Right.
One of the other really super interesting things about blue lights is that because they increase your cortisol, it also increases your blood sugar, your glucose. And so if you're in this state of high cortisol, then you're getting high glucose, then you're getting high insulin to match it to bring your glucose back down. And so you're spiking your insulin all day too. You don't even have to have any food in your body. Blue light will spike your cortisol.
Okay, well, that gives me more reasons to throw my phone in the corner. It's fine.
So we have to, we're living in this modern world. So what do we do is kind of the next thing. How do we, with this knowledge, how do we function in this world? And so in terms of light, the easiest thing that you can do, well, first of all, is making sure you get outside at sunrise. You have to actually, those frequencies of light don't go through your windows. So in the wintertime, if you don't want to step outside, that's how I get my cold immersion, bare feet on the ground. You at least open your window, not just the blinds, but the physical window, and you can flood your room with those frequencies of sunrise light. It's important to get outside during the day when the UVB is out without any sunscreen. You need those UVB rays to do several things in your mitochondria. Also to convert your cholesterol into vitamin D. And then it's important to see the sunset as much as possible, because that sunset light is very healing, and it signals your body to start releasing that melatonin and prepare your brain for sleep.
So that explains why in the middle of winter I'm ready for bed at 5 o'clock. Oh, love that for me.
So the other thing is getting quality. Spend the money to get the quality blue blocking glasses. So these glasses that I have on are my daytime blue blockers. So because I'm on the computer with you right now, or because I'm on sessions with my clients, you'll always see me wearing my dorky blue blockers. When I'm outside, no sunglasses, never.
Ugh,
because if you're wearing sunglasses, then you're blocking all of those frequencies of light, and you're telling your body that it's night. And then you go inside and you take off your sunglasses, you're telling your body that it's 12 noon on the equator. You're giving our eyes and our skin are sensors that are there to tell our brain, where are you on the planet Earth? What time of day is it? What time of year is it? Because our body functions very differently depending on all of those things.
What if you need to wear sunglasses, like asking for me, because my eyes are so sensitive to the light. So it hurts.
Right, because it's trained your eyes to be sensitive to the light because of wearing sunglasses. So if you just start slowly, you'll see over time that you'll become less sensitive. A lot of people who have dry eyes, when they stop wearing sunglasses, their dry eyes goes away, because our eyes have their own microbiome, right? Just like our gut, just like the front of your teeth is a completely different microbiome than the back of your teeth, right? Your eyes are a microbiome, and those frequencies of sunlight have benefits for the good microbes in your eye.
Good to know. So then I'm just kind of stating the obvious. You use the quantum biology in your life coaching.
Yes.
So what kind of life coaching do you do? Because I know there's a bajillion facets of it. So obviously yours is more holistic and stuff like that, which we love holistic here. But how does that translate into coaching for you?
Okay, yeah. So my coaching it's a 3-prong system. Anywhere that you come in, we'll hit all 3 parts of it. So the first part is self-advocacy and education. So really educating women on what is happening. Yeah. And what is perimenopause? What is menopause? And helping you advocate for yourself so that you can align yourself with a practitioner, a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
who is actually educated. That's
Mm.
a big, for me, I was educating my doctors on what I needed.
Yeah.
And and so there there are more, and there is a big shift in menopause and perimenopause care.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot more providers that are focusing and actually learning and keeping up to date. But I mean, I have to tell you, my partner, he's a physician assistant, and the company that he works is just decided that they're going to start prescribing, like helping women in perimenopause and menopause and doing hormone replacement therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And he got his training, and in the training, they said, oh, if they don't have a uterus, they don't need progesterone.
Oh Lord.
So, and then the other thing I see is like there's kind of this there's a lie. It's a white lie that's being told about bioidentical hormones, in that the way that some of these companies are positioning themselves, they make it seem like bioidentical hormones are specifically made for you and only you. And so sign up for our program and spend $300 a month to get your hormones shipped to your doorstep because they're made just for you. When in all actuality, your doctor can prescribe you bioidentical hormones and they cost like $10.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a scam going on there.
Of course.
Yeah, bioidentical hormones are called bioidentical because the molecule of the hormone that you're taking it's identical to the molecule that your body makes itself. Estradiol is estradiol, but
Mm-hmm.
there are these other estrogens that come from mare urine and Premarin. That's what I was on. That's not the exact molecule that a human body makes.
Right.
So I digress. That's the first part. Education and advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is what I call emotional mastery, which is how can I help you process. And this is the life coaching part of it, right? There can be
Mm-hmm.
a lot of big emotions that are coming up during this time.
Yeah.
This perimenopause age is when women commit the most suicide, when women are getting divorced. It's a hard time, and I have my tools to help
Mm-hmm.
women manage that change, deal with the grief. A lot of these emotional blocks and these patterns that we've developed over our lifetime really come to the surface, and we start noticing how they're blocking our progress in our relationships, in our career, within our own growth. So we do a lot of work with emotional mastery. And then the last piece is the quantum biology lifestyle tools. So, how can you change your eating habits, your light habits, your water habits, how can we give you some good tools
Mm-hmm.
in order to support your anxiety, your depression, in order to help you work at that cellular level so that all of the other pieces can come along more easily.
Yeah. I love that you say support anxiety and depression, because there's so many people that still think that it can just like, it's all in your head or it can just be cured. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, there's ways that we can support it not being as bad or as like long term kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I tell everyone. I'm like, if you're on medication or you're doing whatever to combat it, like it's never going to take it away. It's just going to make the lows a little less low, and it'll make those lows a little less frequent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I love that you say support it, because there's words are powerful. They
Yeah.
just really are.
But for some people, though, I have seen the anxiety go away.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it's not ever going to come back, because our circumstances are always changing.
Right.
But, really drastic changes for myself, especially. I mean, I I was a shell of who I am now, and so, yeah, it's been life changing. I mean, getting the proper hormone replacement therapy was so important. But then now that I've added the quantum biology aspect to it, I never felt better. I can
Right.
say.
No, that makes sense. So you've brought up perimenopause a couple of times, and we
Hmm.
were chatting about it in our prep call, but the the kind of general knowledge, in air quotes, is that it can last up to 10 years. And you were saying that's not normal. So why is that not normal?
Right. So it's definitely normal that our hormones start to decrease as we get older.
Hmm.
But to have these severe symptoms that women are starting to have even in their mid 30s is not normal. It may be common now, and after the little intro I gave you about light, we can see very easily why it's become more common, but that is not normal. Our environment, not only just our external environment, but our internal and our emotional environment is really affecting our hormone health. Because not only do we have stressors from the outside, right? Light, this artificial light is a stressor. It's
Yep.
making our cortisol rise. But we also have more of these internal stressors. Women are taking on so much more responsibility than ever. Having the average household have both parents working, children. We're also this generation that they call the sandwich generation, which is like we're sandwiched between young children and dying parents. Twice the stress because women are waiting to get married later and have children later. Then we're that sandwich generation. Whereas in the past, people were having their children in their 20s. So you were 20, your mom was 40, your grandma was 60, and we had all of these supports. But now you just have the 40 something year old with the kids and the dying grandparents. So we have so much more stress.
Yeah.
And that's creating this this hormonal imbalance. And so I'm finding myself getting a little frustrated with this idea of, okay, well, you're 35, I did your blood work, and your hormones are flatlined, so you just must be early perimenopause.
My God, I'm only 2 years from that. Can we not? Like, that's
Yeah.
kind of scary to think about. Like, oh, in 2 years, it might be a thing. Like, oh my God, I thought I was still young.
Well, you are, and that's the thing, though, is that we have to maximize our mitochondrial health, and we have to start paying attention to these things that are creating all of these imbalances, because it's not just physical, it's emotional,
Yeah.
and those two are really tied together. And this is, I mean, the way I look at it, I'm 46, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
And you look at like all these women who have done these amazing things, they're in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
We're really just getting started, and it's such a shame to see these hormonal imbalances getting in the way of women's vitality, um, and that the system isn't looking at what the root causes are.
Right. No, they're not.
I went and I spent a week in the Caribbean of Colombia, and I sat with some of the spiritual leaders there, and I was so excited to ask them, what do you do for your women in perimenopause? What herbs are you giving them? And what ceremonies are you doing for them?
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at me like I had 5 eyes. They're like, nothing. Our women don't have these issues. And I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Of course not. You're sleeping on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
which is the magnetism piece of it. You're eating the food that grows 100 yards from your hut. There's no electricity. You're drinking water that's from the snow that melted on the top of the mountain, and that's structured and mineralized. And they don't have any artificial light. No wonder. They don't have stress like we have in our modern world. So it's really our modern world is messing us up, and we can't keep up fast enough. We can't
Right.
adapt fast
Mm-hmm.
enough. This is contributing to, hormones, metabolic disease. They're all tied together.
Mm-hmm.
All tied together. The obesity rates, the ADHD, this was one of the things I saw as a teacher. Those last few years of teaching, I'm sitting in this classroom surrounded by Wi-Fi, 25 kids all with their own private iPad underneath these artificial lights, stressed out. And I was just like, I got to get out of here. I
Yeah.
can't do this. So the real lesson from going to Colombia and sitting with those spiritual healers was just kind of the cherry on top of
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm on the right path. I know that I can help women, men, children, anyone
Right.
with these principles that are just rooted in nature.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get that. I'm just, yeah. There's just like so much going on in my head right now, just like from
Yeah.
all the things that I've been like taking in. But also like, yeah, like you were saying, like in classrooms, the older the kids get, the less they're outside for recess.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I was in 5th grade and we had one recess period for like a half hour and that
Mm-hmm.
was it. But
Mm-hmm.
also like, it's kind of funny. I say this all the time, but like when people are like, go touch grass, it's supposed to be an insult, but also like, actually go touch grass.
Yeah.
Like
Catch a
it'll
drink.
ground you, like chill,
Yeah.
So I guess to kind of like wrap all this up, how are you doing now?
I'm doing great. I'm doing very well. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm thriving. I made a lot of changes in my life. Like I said, I was teaching. I quit teaching after teaching for 20 years in a very highly coveted school district,
Mm-hmm.
where I was a respected teacher, because I knew that if I wanted to feel better, that I had to make some lifestyle changes. And I also was just so passionate about everything that I had learned through my own experience. I had suffered so much for so long. I feel it's criminal to let women suffer. That you
Yeah.
don't have to suffer through this time. There are so many even free things that you can do to help yourself along this path. And then through all of my training for my life coaching, that was coaching that I was doing on myself and with myself,
Yeah.
and so that helped me tremendously. So I'm so much better off than I was
Right.
before, and I see my future and the health of my future and the health of my family is so much better as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a more patient mother. I'm so much more present for my kids than I was, because I was just so tapped out
Mm-hmm.
from waking up every morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and just going all
Right.
day. And that was just like an internal thing, plus all the bad environment that I was in, to make the choice to put my emotional and physical health first
Mm-hmm.
is the greatest gift I could have given to myself.
Yeah. You can't give to others if you're empty.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's just been really great to help other women.
So where can we find you for people that are going to be interested in reaching out?
So my Instagram is navigate.menopause, and my website is navigatemenopause.com. And I offer free consultations to anyone who wants to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for coming on. I'm actually, as soon as this is done, I'm going to go hang outside with the dog because I think the sun finally just came out.
Yeah, great.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Heather.